Hi guys, Coach Mike here. Welcome back to the channel. One of the things in my 2024 development plan is for me to have the ability to operate at peak performance levels, whether that's my trading, my business operation, and even some of my personal goals. And who else better to look and emulate that are some of the professional poker players and even sports professionals. Well, we're big fans of Jared Tendler here at the channel, and I did a little deep dive and found this nugget from about 8 years ago where he interviews poker champ Daniel Negreanu. Let's take a look and see if Daniel can give us some insights on how we can be performing at our peak levels, including in our trading world. Let's take a look.
Okay, I'm excited about this. Let's see if we can get some good action plan items out of my development plan, peak performance task, and let's see what Daniel Negreanu has to say.
I want to kind of focus on self-improvement at first. It's become like a big thing for you now, and I wondered what really prompted you to get into it more so at this point in your life, and was it something that was missing in your life? Was it something that poker had become too big of a priority? How did that start for you?
Well, it reminds me of something that Christy Arnett just wrote in her blog, and I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but it was something to the effect of, she has a belief that we're always students of life and we'll never master it. And I've always been very self-aware for the most part, and introspective and looking for deeper meaning. This isn't something that's new. And then I think with age and comes wisdom. And I did a lot of reading of various books that I thought were interesting, like some Eckhart Tolle stuff.
Power of Now.
You actually know not. I read that eventually, but A New Earth. I found New Earth. I found that book to be a lot better, to be honest. It talks about the ego in a very interesting way, and so that's how I started. Reading some books, and then my agent Brian Balsbog, he did a course in Vegas called Choice Center, which most people in poker have probably heard of. Mm-hmm. And he said it was great, you should try it. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did the course, and it's all along the lines of raising your level of emotional intelligence. And I found it to be a very, very powerful way of doing it because, I get a lot from reading, and I'm, analytical in that way. There's just no substitute for experiencing something as a memory or as a, an exercise. And, there's scientific studies that show that a lot of brains, more than most, respond to experience more than they would, just reading a book.
Absolutely. I mean, right off the bat, Negreanu is nailing this. There's really no substitute for experience, no matter what you hear and what you say. Now, we can, as coaches, communicate our experience, and different recipients and different traders have different levels of absorbing and really wanting to use that experience. However, really good point. I really like this. I'm curious about this game center thing that I think he said game center. This may be an action item on my development plan. Let's take a look and see where he heads with this.
So self-improvement wasn't something that just kind of happened. It's something that's been a kind of lifelong journey for you. What do you feel like has been kind of the biggest takeaway in that pursuit of late? Obviously it's given you things at different points in your life. What are you getting from it most recently?
Well, I would say there's one thing that sticks out, and that's, standing responsible for everything in my life. I believe in, I guess what you call the 4 levels of responsibility. Level 1 being, I'm not responsible for anything that happens in my life, right? So that's like a victim mentality where, total victim. Nothing, I can't control anything. It's bad luck, da-da-da. And the truth is, people in that level rarely actually want to do anything to change that, right? And then level 4 is the case where you look at it I'm responsible for everything, for how I react to events, people, and places, everything,
It's interesting. Yeah. Now, what level are you on? This is the really interesting dialogue, and I have to think about that. Probably more of a 3. I always take a lot of responsibility, and quite honestly, I'm sometimes criticized for taking on too many people's responsibility, more than what I should be responsible for. So let's see what happens.
Certainly. So the responsibility that you've kind of taken for yourself now, in what respect does that apply to poker?
Well, I think it's very applicable to poker because You hear a lot of people talk about poker and they say, you know what? If I just ran good in those spots, I'd be okay. And when you hear that, you think, really? What's the power in telling these bad beat and victim stories? How is that going to help you in any way, shape, or form? It isn't. The only power you can gain is if you come from 100% place of pure responsibility. So if you get all your money in with aces and you lose to 5 deuce, okay, that sucked. Happens sometimes. You did nothing wrong. If you continue to always stand responsible for your results, in the long run, you're going to do just fine. The problem we face is the majority of the time we end up with the victim mentality of like, I'm just unlucky. I know so many Mike Matusow is the unluckiest poker player in the world. Just ask him. And you know what? He really is.
That's great. I mean, you could Google Mike Matusow and have a field day on it. It's very interesting. One of the things we try to convey in our membership group is, when you have a bad trade or a losing streak or a setback, was it you or was it the markets? And really, variance sometimes often plays a big role in that type of distinction. So I like where Daniel's going here. Annie Duke in the book Thinking in Bets also talks about how she had the victim mentality, and her coach, another poker player, basically said, what did you learn from it? So the key there is, great, you had a bad beat. What was it? I don't want to hear your story. No one cares, to be honest. What did you learn from it so you could bring it to the next level and not make that mistake again, if there even was a mistake in the first place? I really like where Daniel's going here.
Why? Because he truly believes it. He can't wait to get rivered. What he doesn't realize, though, is how often when that flush card comes and somebody bets on the river, he thinks in his mind already, well, the guy must have made the flush because that's how unlucky I am. He makes the fold and the guy was bluffing because he's not really present to the moment. He's really completely stuck in that victim mentality of like, woe is me. And that holds back tons of poker players from being as successful as they could be.
Would you say that Mike is great at recognizing bad luck and terrible at recognizing instances where he gets good luck?
I think he's terrible at both.
Okay.
But I'd say he's probably better at recognizing bad luck and not understanding that if he has pocket aces in a 4-way pot and it holds up, that's extremely lucky, Mike. But you don't see it that way.
Yeah.
You just think I have aces. I'm entitled. I deserve this. I'm supposed to win.
We're having a little fun here, and Dale's having a little fun, but it's true. Recognizing luck, and again, I'll go back to Thinking in Bets and How to Decide by Annie Duke. Really interesting insight that we have to accept luck sometimes. Anytime where there's a market of variance, there's going to be an element of luck, but remember that luck can be on the positive side as well, too. So actually recognizing it is actually kind of cool, where you just embrace it and accept it and take advantage of it when it happens, but it's also just embrace and accept it when it doesn't go in your favor. Interesting.
That's another common phrase from our friend Phil Hellmuth, who will say that often. I deserve it. I'm entitled. No, you're not. That's not how it works.
Yeah, it's amazing because the beliefs that you're talking about, the victim mentality, they shape your vision. You start to interpret what is happening in front of you based on what those beliefs are confirming. In some respects, it's almost confidence boosting, and maybe this is what you're seeing with Mike, to have your beliefs be confirmed, because in a warped sense of a way, it actually gives you some control.
Right. It's level 1 thinking again. It's back to, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's because that other idiot called with a bad hand, and this dealer is really unlucky for me. It's not my fault. That's an easier way to live in a lot of senses, that like you're not responsible for anything. But if you're not responsible for anything, you can't do anything about it. It's just not a powerful way of being. And I find that, like, especially with poker, the only value you can take is if you look at a situation and go, did I do everything right? Analyze the hand. If so, continue to do that. If not, look at better ways to play it. Look at more possibilities and a deeper understanding of maybe what you can do to be in a better spot instead of being in that spot. Like, for example, Mike, he'll remember the last bad beat that knocked him out, but he doesn't remember an hour earlier where he missed a key value bet on the river against the guy. He doesn't remember that. That's not as relevant. Yep. But that's the thing he could have controlled that may have changed the ultimate outcome. All you can do is focus on, what you have control over.
Oh, okay. There's your money shot. I mean, focus on what you can control. I mean, it's great. I mean, I'm really enjoying. This is actually reinforcing a lot of the things that I try to instill in my trading. But again, I'm not perfect. But I need to remind myself, what can I control, what can't I control? And there's a lot of elements of trading that you can't control. That's actually the beauty of the markets and the beauty of this profession that we're in. Let's continue here.
Well, and in that analysis where you're saying, determine whether or not you played the hand right. I mean, one of the difficulties with poker is that there's so much short-term variance that it's sometimes very difficult to know definitively one way or the other. How do you kind of deal with that short-term uncertainty?
Yeah, I think that's not something I deal with now. I'm 40 years old. I've been playing 20 years. I don't really suffer. I did when I was younger. Basically, you're making plays, you're playing certain hands. I was just developing my strategy. So it took a lot of honest introspection. And really, I think the best way to go about it is feedback from friends. So whatever core group of people you play, you shouldn't be out on this on your own. If you want to be a professional poker player and you're out there by yourself, you're doing it wrong. There's forums you can ask for feedback on hands, but even better is just a core group of friends who you can ask for feedback. So listen how I played this hand. What do you think? You think I could have done anything differently? And then have a listen. That's the only way you'll learn to create strategies that actually are more likely to be correct.
I'm okay. Now I'm really getting into this. Absolutely. Accountability, trading partner, whatever the case. I mean, I have a trading partner. I have a trading coach, and a professional peak performance coach. I'm always bouncing things off him, but I know I can do better. This is interesting. And missing that accountability group meeting sometimes. Maybe I shouldn't do that as often as I should. Very good point, Daniel.
So early in your career, were you really critical of those situations or spots where there was some uncertainty, or you weren't really sure whether or not you played the hand incorrect or not?
Those are the most valuable situations, the ones that you're not sure about, because that's where the learning comes from. So I recommend for anyone who's playing a poker session, you could be no limit hold'em. If you play 6 hours, you're going to come up with 2-3 really tricky spots, at least, where it's really valuable to analyze the crap out of them and do that with friends and get feedback.
Love it. I mean, same thing applies to the trading. I mean, using your journal, daily report carding, phenomenal asset to your developmental journey. Absolutely. I'm loving the analogies. We hear a lot about poker and trading, but this is just really validating that to a degree that I'm so psyched about here. Let's continue this.
That's awesome advice. I mean, one that I share entirely, that uncertainty basically means that there's something for you to know. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's a huge opportunity there.
The mistake poker players make, sorry to interrupt, but the mistake poker players make is when they get to a place where they feel like they got it all figured out. You never have it all figured out. If you have to be open to the fact that you don't know what you don't know, right? That you know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. So at any time you think like you've got it all figured out, you're likely to be surpassed by others who are thinking about the game at a more creative and a deeper level.
Well, you close yourself off to the option for learning new things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then it's just I'll listen to bad players talk about hands sometimes, and I'll learn something. Maybe not. I won't learn about how to play a hand properly, but I may learn a thing or two about the mentality of a beginning player and how he views the game and how I can use that to my advantage later. So it doesn't matter what box the information comes from. You can turn that into value if you choose to.
Great point. And I find one of the more dangerous areas of my trading is when I become too overconfident. So it's a really good point that Daniel's making here.
In your experience, what do you think blocks people from wanting to be open-minded like that and continuing to learn? Because I know that you're surrounded by a lot of people who fit that model. What do you assess in them that creates that?
Well, there's two things. I would say the most predominant one for sure is the absolute addiction to being right. For the most part, people are addicted to being right rather than, being open-minded to the possibility that, maybe there is a different way. Nope, this is how you play aces. That's it. You always raise 5x under the gun. That's just the way it is. Or you never limp. You do. Whenever you talk about never and always, you're already walking down the wrong path. Being open to just the possibility that it might make sense to veer from your original strategy.
Okay, so kind of moving on a little bit, you were Player of the Year at the World Series in 2004. 9 years later, you do it again, and then you're in contention again this year. What do you believe is the things that have allowed you to thrive in kind of the pre and post internet boom era?
I think the number one thing is I've always had a very goal-oriented approach to everything in my life. When I'm not setting goals, or striving to be better at something, then I'm in a complacent place and I'm not as happy. So I've always been a goal setter. With poker, it's usually in January that I set out goals for the whole year, and I typically stick to them very, very rigorously in terms of accomplishing them. With the World Series of Poker, the Player of the Year awards, I've always liked, ever since the late '90s when I started playing these Player of the Year awards. I love them. Player of the Series, it's just fun because a tournament's a tournament. There's tons of those, but having the best run over an extended period is something that's important to me. How I've been able to keep up is, I think, self-awareness of understanding where my game is at in relation to the others, and if it needs improvement or tweaks, I'm willing to bite the bullet, be humble, and go, okay, let's try a different way. I don't assume that my way is the only way and that it always will be.
This is a really good point. I mean, first of all, the preparation, obviously world champion, Player of the Year 2 times over. The goal setting is really, so critical, but really monitoring that and ability to shift and make changes also kind of important. I mean, it's something I need to look at in my thing. I think I do it. I know I do it, but is there an optimal way where I can improve in that area? For sure. But these daily report cards, you see the trader pros talking about daily report cards, assessment, journaling, and how many people do it? Maybe 60%. So this is really where the value of that identification, part of the risk management process, identification, assessment, control. It's that identification of what you're doing, how you can improve, and what adjustments you need to make to get there. Really, really good stuff.
Where did that ethic come from?
Good question. It's easy to say your parents, but I don't know. I just feel like I've always had a competitive spirit. I've always just been, as a child, a pretty competitive guy, and wanted to succeed and win. So that's just the makeup of myself. I wouldn't really attribute it to my parents, to be honest.
Yeah, myself as well. Well, lovingly, of course. I find that, the best traders, and I speak from a risk management perspective and a coaching perspective, but I find that they have a little gamble in them. There's a gambling mentality to them. I'm not saying blow everything and poor risk management, but they have a little bit of gusto where they'll push it. They'll go for it a little bit. And I'm all for relatively conservative, slow and steady growth type thing. But every once in a while, I think you have a little Negreanu in all of us traders.
So if we can kind of get into a little bit of detail here about what you're doing to really be enhancing your game. Is it something where, you've talked about talking with friends and really kind of analyzing critically your game, being aware of what's going on. But are you using equity calculators? Are you continually reviewing hands? Is it something that you're doing daily? Is it something that you do more intensively at certain periods of time? How does that actually work? I
have a good understanding of the game and what needs to be done. So the most important aspect of success for me is my mental approach. So I spend 95%, 98% of my time on being mentally prepared. And one of the ways I do that is by journaling, writing out kind of what my plan is for the day. And, I get mocked on Twitter, and it's fine. I understand it because they just don't really understand what I'm saying. Is I'll make my intention clear. So when I enter a tournament, I write out my intention is to win this tournament. My intention is to end day one with this position in chips. My intention is to make the final table as a chip leader. And I feel like there's value in speaking it out. Now, that could be problematic for someone if, let's say, you said, my intention is to end day one with 80,000 in chips. And now you're sitting on 72,000 with 15 minutes to go. If you're attached to that result, you have a problem. So it's not goal setting. I don't really care what I end up with. I'm not attached, but I'd like to be in a good position.
So you're not rigidly attached to that number. You're more attached to the intention of, as you said, being in a good position.
Sure. By intentionalizing and by being clear about what I want to accomplish in the day, I feel there's value in that. Whatever it is. Let's say you don't play poker, for example. You wake up in the morning. What is your intention for the day? Your intention is to make a difference for your wife. Your intention is to do a great job at work. Your intention is to, exercise and make sure you get in a good workout. I see lots and lots and lots of value of writing that out in a journal in the morning, or even speaking it out to somebody, or just thinking about it. And then if you don't come up, if you don't do what you expect it to do, then clearly that wasn't your intention in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been silent for a few minutes because I'm just absorbing this. You're Daniel Negreanu. Okay, you're one of the top poker players in our time, and he's journaling. He's journaling his daily stuff. What I want to do today. He has a little bit of a spirituality, I think, to him as well. But when it comes to his poker playing, he's very clear about what he's trying to do and what he's doing. And again, he hinted it too, where journaling is not just about documenting your trades. It's about assessing them and taking the time to do that. This is absolutely brilliant. I'm so glad I'm doing this.
Yeah, it's interesting to bring this up because I was going to ask you also about your goals, because I know you it's your annual tradition of doing that, and in reading through them, they tend to be very results oriented, but the way that you're describing it now is that it's much more about intentionality. And I think the thing that perhaps is like embedded in there, like when you say that there's a ton of value, to me it feels like the value is that it creates the target, and then the target means that you have to figure out how to achieve it, and that you really are more focused on the how and like the process side of things.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a way you could put it. Like, I'm focusing on the end goal, right? What is it? So why am I doing this? Why am I playing this tournament? Like, why am I here? What is?
I ask myself that every time I turn my platform on. I'm sorry, continue.
What is my ultimate goal here? And I like to make it clear. So my goal is to win this tournament. I'm starting from there and I go backwards. Rather than start from the beginning, I do it the other way. Goal is win. So then I'm going to revert back, and then I'm going to work out the mechanisms and the approach as to how. Because there's more than one way. So for example, if my intention is to walk from here to the other side of the room, right? That's my intention, to get to the other side of the room. How many ways can I accomplish that? Right? Hundreds, millions. I could jog, I could hop, I could roll, I could skip. There's so many different ways to get there. But the key is I know what it is I want, where it is I want to go, and what I want to accomplish. Start there and work back.
Really interesting. And I love the word he used, intention. Right? It's not about a specific goal. I just see so many traders with a certain win goal for the day. Who cares about the daily win goal? I mean, have a bigger picture, but the intention is there. And ultimately, he has sort of a purpose, sort of making the world a better place or enriching people's lives, which are two of my intentions that I literally drill down to every trade. So, but I like where Daniel's going here too. It's pretty interesting. I need to maybe incorporate a sort of a bigger scope in my purpose as well. Interesting.
I get Ben Yu and some of the other poker players. They've come up to me and they said, I feel like the way that I approach it is I just play every single hand the best way that I can. And in theory, that's great, and that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I'd also say there's nothing wrong with saying, for what reason?
Exactly.
Why are you doing that? Why are you there to play every hand? What is your goal? Is your goal to finish 8th? Is your goal to just hang out? What is your actual intention for what you want to see happen? And some people, it's a really difficult thing, I think, for a lot of minds to grasp, and it was for me too. I was very resistant to all this stuff because I thought it was more detrimental than good, and that's true with a lot of players. But now I see that, putting out that message to the universe, if you will, get all kooky, high-end, new agey. I see the value, and some people, I haven't read The Secret or anything like that, but they call it law of attraction or something along those lines. I have seen the value in that, not just in my poker results, but in my personal life and other, achievements that I've been able to attain. Again, probably could have done that stuff without saying my intention is to win, but I do believe that it increases my chances ever so slightly at the very least.
I love this, and by the way, Law of Attraction, phenomenal book. Probably help you more in life than will actually trading. And you can be kooky, cutie, whatever you called it before. You could do that all day. This is so inspiring. What I find is when we do initial assessments and we ask our members to provide a little bit what their why is. One of the questions is, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Obviously, the number one answer we get is so I can make a lot of money. And I get it. I know we're here for that, but really think more about what your why is. I mean, I mentioned my why before is to make the world a better place and to enrich people's lives. That includes my own and my own families. But think about, what is your why? Why are you doing this? And maybe try to give an answer that's beyond the money part. We all get it. I mean, if you didn't say that, you'd be lying. But think about your why. Way to go, Daniel. I like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to play devil's advocate with like the secret stuff, because the difficulty that I have with it is that it sort of changes the nature of the game. The game then becomes who's the one that kind of is more attached to their intention rather than like the actual skill that's kind of playing out on the poker table. And so to me, what you're describing is that you have 100% focus on that outcome, on the what you need to do to achieve that outcome. And there's a lot of things that occur when you're playing at a really high level. Like when you're in the zone, which it sounds like you are doing at a very high rate, you're absorbing unconscious data. And that unconscious data creates insight, and you're able to make decisions at a very high level in ways that are not always conscious. And that's the kind of stuff to me that I look a little bit more scientifically at to explain what it is that you're capable of doing, rather than it being the universe kind of conspiring to give you this victory because you've been creating such a strong intentionality. But it's more like the byproduct of intentionality, the byproduct of having really high focus means that your mind is operating at such a high level that as a result of that, compared to most of the people you're playing against, you have an edge just for that reason alone.
Very well, Jared, you may be having a new client very soon. Really interesting stuff. I think sometimes, yeah, the overachiever thing kind of gets in my way sometimes. Let me hear what Daniel has to say about this.
No, absolutely, and you know, along with that, from an analytical standpoint, so you have your intention, which is to say win the tournament. Now, from an analytical standpoint, you can ask yourself, is what you're doing in line with the vision that you have and your intent? So, for example, if my intention is to win the tournament and it's 6 a.m. and I'm drinking beers with my friends and the tournament's at noon, is that in line with my intention? Is my intention really clear? If all that mattered to me in the world was winning that tournament, would I be doing that? If I was giving it my absolute best, would I be out at the bar? Would I be not getting sleep? Would I, be on my iPad and all those things? No. So clearly, if you're doing those things, your intention is not clear, because the actions that you're taking are not in line at all with the vision you have for yourself. So I like to work back, have the intention, and then I ask myself, is this in line with the vision I have for my life?
I love. I mean, this is exposing the area of my development that I really want to do. What are the areas outside of the trading life that I need to help improve so I can become a peak performer? I mean, obviously, spoken from a true champion. Let's see where Jared goes with this.
Yeah, which speaks to a lot of responsibility, and I would conceptualize it as a conflicting goal. People show up. On the one hand, they want to look good. They don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to fail. And so those intentionalities sometimes create behaviors like that, where they'll, as you said before, like self-sabotage in a way that's not necessarily something that they're aware of, but staying out drinking till 6 a.m. doesn't feel like such a problem when deep down you're not fully committed to winning because there are those conflicting motives. I know you're a big golfer. I am as well. And that's the beauty of golf as well. Golf and poker are similar in this regard. There are many ways to skin a cat. There are tons of different ways to swing the golf club. And many ways to play a particular hole and play it well. So just because one way works for another and has the potential for being criticized because somebody else does it differently, it almost sort of speaks more to the person who is criticizing about who they are rather than the one who's kind of receiving that criticism.
If your goal is to be accepted and look good and play like everybody else, that's very average, and you're going to end up with very average results, meaning you're coming in 17th, you're min cashing, you're not succeeding. It's those people that are willing to veer from what is considered, the traditional ABC strategy and take risks that they know full well could come back and haunt them, or that people are going to mock and look like they're stupid. If you're not willing to do that, you will play just like everybody else, and you will be just as break-even, slight loser as everybody else. You're just not thinking about poker at a level that's going to make you exceptional.
It's very interesting and I have to, again, look introspective about my things. And this is where journaling comes into play, where, as coaches, we're always preaching, play by the rules, stick by the rules, and, and slow and steady wins the race. But really, I kind of like it when people go off the rails or have a little setback, and you identify, is there something there? I mean, we're not trying to create clones here. There's so many, as Jared says, so many different ways to hit a golf ball and be successful. The question is finding your groove. And part of the development is allowing that to happen before you quit, of course. So you want to make sure you don't quit during that process, because it's usually not a profitable time in your career. All right, let's continue here.
And you've said in a few places that you believe that your belief in yourself is one of the biggest reasons that you've been so successful. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that and why you think that is?
Right. So, I'm a big believer that if I didn't believe that I could be a successful poker player and a professional, I wouldn't have taken it on, and I wouldn't have put in the work. Similar to like, okay, there's a 20-foot wall. I look at that 20-foot wall. I don't believe I can actually jump over that wall in any way. If I don't believe that I can, I'm way less likely to put in the work necessary to actually give it a shot and to see that if I could. Whatever it is in life, Brad Pitt, before he became like a big-time movie star, he had a belief somewhere that he could accomplish that goal. So I believe there's like, there's belief, then there's action, and then there's result. Doesn't always end in success, but I don't believe that anyone has big success in life without first believing that they actually could. So if you have those self-limiting beliefs, like you cannot be successful at something, you're more likely to be right, because we're addicted to being right, and you'll make yourself right.
Very interesting. And again, belief, action, result. And again, unfortunately, it doesn't always result in a positive result. But yeah, a lot of in my initial discussions with traders is you have to believe. You have to believe you can do this. And maybe you don't believe, but maybe why you have a team or a coach or accountability partner is to give you the initial strength to believe. But it sounds a lot like hearsay and stuff, but Daniel makes a great point. And clearly there's a fork in the road between the ones who believe, who have a much better shot, and the ones who don't. And the ones who believe will put the extra work in and even maybe not quit as much, or as Jared Tendler would say, suck less, in achieving those goals. Doesn't mean the path is easy. But belief is really, really, really important. But I need to remind myself of that as well. Thank you, Daniel.
There's one last theory that I want to throw out to you. One, because I think you'll be interested in it. Two, I think it'll be helpful for other people too. Have you ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger Effect?
No.
It's basically, there are two sides to it. One side says that there are people who are overconfident. They have like excessive self-belief because they're so incompetent about understanding their own incompetence.
That's funny.
So that's like the essence of what a fish is. Right? They believe they're a great player because they won hands against you, but in fact they have so little skill to be able to recognize their lack of skill that they're overconfident. But then on the flip side, you actually have people who are so skilled, but their problem is that they are projecting, they're projecting the idea that everybody else knows what they know. And so here are people who are really, really skilled, and they're actually underconfident because they think that what they have isn't actually that special.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like a limiting self-belief.
Yeah, and in some respects, it's a limiting self-belief that prevents them from having really good, consistent confidence.
Yeah.
But what it doesn't do is prevent them from playing well. And that's I think some of the key here is that having low confidence doesn't mean that you're going to play poorly, and having high confidence doesn't mean that you'll play well.
Great point. And I actually had a client who had this. I didn't know about this Dunning-Kruger thing, but and they had low confidence, but they just cranked out numbers, and it was kind of like, who cares? But there was a lot of other issues going on with this. It's only one small sample size, but there was some anxiety, depression, things like that. But they always felt that they weren't achieving what they were supposed to do, and he would outperform every year. So interesting study. I'm going to look into that, the Dunning-Kruger effect.
And it's interesting, the other example of the fish who's overconfident, I attribute that to a low EQ, low emotional intelligence, because he's lacking self-awareness, right? Which is something that, if you're so overconfident about something you really don't know anything about, where does that come from? That comes from lacking awareness about how difficult this is, where you stand, not being able to be introspective. And I think that, I'm a big believer in elevating your emotional intelligence in various ways. There's not just one way to do it. Mm-hmm. There's books, there's experiential, but I believe that there are 5 attributes that raise your level of, or increase your chances of having both a happy and successful life. That's one where you are goal setting and achieving those goals.
And where my head goes at, because I'm trained as a therapist, but also looking at performance, is to say, what are the reasons why somebody is going to have those limiting self-beliefs? What are the reasons why they're going to kind of want to be incubated? I think there are people who have a desire to sort of stay unconscious, almost like in the Matrix, Cypher wanting to get plugged back in, not wanting to really be aware, and there, if you can kind of tap into an understanding of why it is that a person would want to hold rigidly to that blindness in a sense, then you get to start to find some interesting things about them.
Well, just like in The Matrix, it's easier, right? He was living in that dream world, eating that steak. He knew it was fake, but he'd rather be there than living in a world that, and I would attribute it to like victim versus responsible. When you become aware that you're responsible, like you're at a place in your life 100% based on decisions you've made throughout your life, right? I understand circumstances happen. Everyone is born with like a different amount of opportunity, but ultimately, wherever you are is based on decisions that you've made. So that's both empowering in the sense that you realize that you can change it, but can also be frightening and scary.
Sure.
People are like, oh my God, this is all because of me. So I have control over my life. That can be a scary proposition for people.
Yeah, and when you say easier, I think they also are not looking at sort of the long-term consequences of taking the easy route. If you stick your arms in a sling just because it's easier to walk, your muscles atrophy. If you're continually doing harder things, you're strengthening muscle, you're developing skill, and that actually provides you the opportunity to do more things in the future. And I think the long-term value of that is often mislooked. I think people kind of fail to calculate the risk of doing nothing.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And again, in coaching world, I mean, traders want to see the immediate result. And sometimes, like I said, put your arms in a sling, which I can't even imagine doing that. Will build atrophy in the muscles. But when there's no P&L for a week, a lot of traders get a little frustrated. So, but again, this is what peak performance is all about.
Right, and risk is a big thing that I look to. Is most people love living in what's their comfort zone, what they know, what they understand. Don't take any risks. Don't ask this girl out; she might turn you down, and you'll feel like an asshole. Don't leave your job and take on something bigger and better. Don't do these things because you're in your comfort zone. But the truth is, in my opinion, all the juice, all the beautiful things in life are associated to the risk that is in the realm outside of your comfort zone. So by taking these risks, and I'm not talking just poker, just whatever it is in life that holds people back from achieving dreams that they set for themselves, is because they're in that comfort zone and they realize to get that dream, it requires risk, right? But that's, in my opinion, when you're not risking and you're not stretching yourself, you're holding yourself back from the very successes and dreams that you claim to want.
Okay, here's your mic drop moment. Okay, love it. And this is where I have been trained by coaches and stuff. There's also the founder of Thinkorswim and Tastyworks, Tom Sosnow, is also incredible creator and achiever. Believes in the same thing. Like that ability for you to be successful comes outside your comfort zone. And I talk a lot about in trading. I talk a lot about people say, well, I'm waiting for this candle to this and the break of the this and the engulfing this. And, is it confirmation you're looking for, or you're looking for comfortmation? It's a big difference, because comfortmation, waiting for the candle to close into this, and there's a price to pay for that. All right. You're paying up an opportunity. Everybody worries about commissions and things like that. But really, that's like a big price to pay. So what is confirmation versus confirmation? And that could be from within a trade, what's your trading entry trigger, or is it how you approach life and also, really more importantly, business success? I'm really, okay, this is my mic drop moment. I feel more empowered now than I have been in the past 40 minutes.
Yeah, and sometimes they expect to want to take excessive risk or think that other people or even themselves, when sometimes it's just looking at like a steady way of expanding your comfort zone. It doesn't have to always be something that's big and dramatic. It can be small kind of baby steps.
And one of the things I like about Jared is he talks like a risk manager. I mean, the same principles that he brings to the table. We're not talking about, and this is a risk manager speaking, I'm not talking about like just taking all your money and blowing it on one thing or something like that. But it's taking those chances a little bit and using calculated, of course.
So if your life was like the way I look at it is like if your life was like a line, right? And you're at a place in your life. If you continue to do things the same way that you've always done them, then you can only expect that your life will continue on the exact same trajectory it has. Unless you decide to change or take a risk or do something outside of your comfort zone or not, you will see no change. So when people talk about what they want and I wish I had this and that, like unless you're actually willing to take the risks in order to achieve those things, you will end up exactly where you've always been. just seems like impossible to achieve anything without changing the way that you're doing things or the way that you have been doing things most of your life.
Yeah.
You know, and Daniel makes a great point. I totally agree. I have to think about this more, but as he was talking, I was thinking about like the things I've failed in and the things I've succeeded in. Most of the things I failed in were sort of in my comfort zone. And I would consider like working for a job much longer than I should have been there. It was very comfortable and it provided, but I consider it sort of a failure in the sense of loss of opportunity, loss of time. I wish I got involved in, this beautiful business of trading much earlier than when I started. And it was because probably I was too much in my comfort zone. So great. And just fabulous dissection here of comfort zone and not comfort zone. And we're just built and trained and maybe, our upbringing, like Daniel mentioned, to just kind of stay in that comfort zone. It's okay. Just like smile, get the paycheck kind of thing. So I don't know. It's just not for me.
Yeah. And in some respects, the logical conclusion too is that things only have the potential to get worse. As people get older, they often accumulate a lot of emotional baggage. And so, those regrets, those wishes, can often weigh on somebody, and the lack of growth. It's sort of like you're either moving in one direction or the other. You're growing or you're constricting. And
yeah, and you're right. Like somebody who's 60 years old has got so much more baggage and so many more self-limiting beliefs that it's going to be way more difficult to change all those beliefs or to address them than it would be a 12 or 13-year-old kid who's just starting his life out. And that's why I'm a big believer in emotional intelligence being taught to teenagers.
Yeah,
they're forming their views on the world. Like they're so empowered by realizing that they have choice. I think that it's really, really valuable to teach it in schools. Not necessarily in a very, very intense level, like you may see at some of the trainings that I've done, like at Choice Center, but something like a little softer that opens them up to realizing that they have the power to be whatever it is they want to be.
I think I need to do that in my coaching, and especially with young and developing traders too. I need to factor that element a little more, a little less on the, moving averages and stuff, but really build their muscle emotionally and intelligently. So this has been very inspiring to not only help me personally, but also what value I can bring to others.
And I think it's really cool that you have been keeping a journal and use one for a very long time. It's something that I advocate. I've done it myself for at this point over 16 years. So it's an incredible tool, and I love the fact that you're advocating for it. And
hey, so I hope you got some really interesting insights into that from two really core professionals. I certainly did. Leave your comments below. What did you like about it? What did you learn? What do you think you're going to do next in your development plan? Hey, thanks again. We'll see you next time.